It is Y105, number one for all the hits. I'm Steve Pulaski, joined by some very special guests in studio with the Dubuque Fighting Saints. He's Robert Miller, President of Business Operations with the Dubuque Fighting Saints, going into year 2 with the Saints. Robert, how are we?
I'm doing very well this morning. Excited to be here.
It's a real pleasure to have you in studio. I know we can only hear your voice, but you got that bright red Fighting Saints tie on.
I love it.
You're coming over here to all business on a Monday morning.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
After your first year with the Dubuque Fighting Saints, you joined the team as president in 2021. I guess speaking broadly, how was your first year? I know there had to be some challenges coming, navigating through the pandemic and stuff. What were your experiences like your first year?
Well, I'll tell you, lucky enough, I've been in sports for a long time, and so I think everybody in the sports world has been faced with things they really couldn't plan on. We just had to really and truly, evolve as we went. And, last year, we got hit with a mask mandate right before the season started. I mean, there was still some COVID stuff that kind of happened and things like that, but we just had to adapt and overcome with it. And I tell you, through the course of the year, you really and truly started to see the fans start to gravitate more to the games and the crowd start to get bigger and all that kind of stuff. And so just, getting a year under my belt, I've learned a ton, and I'm so excited for this next year because I think all of our fans are really going to see the transition of us moving to a new partnership with the way the arena is going to be, the way the service is going to be, and the way our team's going to be. So, but yeah, it was a very interesting year last year. We had a lot of fun. We actually got a new coach last year, and we actually won a ton of games and actually made a great run at the end of the season. So can't wait to do it this year. Looking really forward to the Kirk McDonald era. So that's going to be really good. But yeah, learned a ton last year and going to move it to next year.
Yeah, you guys had a very successful season last year too. And I guess since you're only in year 2 and you still got so much time left too, maybe talk about like the short-term goals this year, next year versus the long-term goals for you personally and the team as a whole for the Fighting Saints.
Well, to be honest with you, short-term goal is to get people acclimated back to coming to games. We want people to feel comfortable. We want people to come out and have a great time, bring their families out, really and truly get back into that routine of coming out to games and being a part of the crowd and being part of the actual event itself. Long-term goals, I think it's an easy one for me, is to really and truly get this market educated on exactly who the Fighting Saints are. This team, these players, these coaches, this whole organization, it's from top to bottom. You're talking about some of the best athletes on the planet coming in here, and they're all working towards that one goal of being in professional hockey or being in college hockey and doing what they do. It's actually it's just an amazing time in these players' lives because they're not being paid. They're coming out of their comfort zone. We have some of these kids coming from all over the world, and they actually live with billet families here in town. So these families actually open their doors up to these kids, and these players actually live with these families for 9 months out of the year. It's actually a crazy kind of business model that we run, but it actually works, and it's really cool because you see a lot of the relationships they build with some of these families here in Dubuque, and it's lifelong. You start hearing about some of these players that played here and they're now in the NHL, one being somebody that just got married, and the billet families that actually housed him back in the day were invited to the wedding, and they become part of that family atmosphere, which is really cool. Another thing on the ice, you're watching these players grow, you're watching these players gel, and you only have sometimes 1 year to do it. This is a developmental league, so you're developing these player skills to move on to that next step. You don't have years to watch a player kind of grow. Sometimes you do, sometimes, but a lot of these athletes, they're here for a year, maybe 2, so you got a very short window to come see them. Our long-term goal is to really and truly teach the citizens of Dubuque what the Dubuque Fighting Saints really are, who we are, and what we're here to do, because I think if everybody in this community really realized the just dynamic product the Dubuque Fighting Saints are, this place could be packed every single night.
It goes beyond marketing, I think. It goes kind of beyond to like the traditional billboards and all of this too. It's an educational thing too.
Yes.
People hear the USHL, and unless you're entrenched with, sports or even hockey as a whole too, it might be kind of hard to communicate that. Do you have any sort of idea kind of what that looks like working with your team and stuff in terms of the educational aspect?
Well, it's pretty much to, go through our past history, show our past players, show exactly where they ended up, what they're doing now, and whether they're in hockey or whether they're in business. Like some of the stories that you hear about with some of these players that came through the Dubuque community, it's just amazing to hear what their futures have become. And we got lucky enough to have a big alumni game this past year where we had about 35 or 40 of our alums. A lot of them them from like the 1980s years come back, and it was some of them's first time back in Dubuque since they played here, and just to hear some of the stories and hear how this, just elevated their careers or elevated their playing careers. I mean, it's just that's what the whole story is about. You have a player that comes here as a young player, and they're still in school, they're living with families they don't know. I mean, like they're working with coaches that have a lot of history and things like that. And I mean, it takes a short time for them to gel, but once they gel, once they actually prove who they are, it's amazing to watch the growth projection of who these players are.
He's Robert Miller, president of business operations with the Dubuque Fighting Saints. You mentioned it earlier, Robert, too. Exciting new partnership with the Dubuque Fighting Saints,
yes,
too. You could talk about that as well.
Yeah, us in Town Square have worked it out. We are actually going to be on the radio this year for the first time in about 5 years, so we are excited about it. Working with Katie and Jeff has been just amazing, and I tell you what, Jeff came to us and said, hey, we're ready to talk. We want you guys on our airways, and this is going to be a great partnership for the team. It's going to be something that we see for the long term, and we are excited about it.
We are excited to have you. Going to hear Dubuque Fighting Saints games on Eagle 102.3. More exposure for a great organization and the great people behind it, too. Robert, I dearly appreciate your time, man, and I cannot wait to see what the Fighting Saints have in store this season. It's going to be great.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.